Hey guys, Dishsoap here with the 13.1AB Legend and Comp tier list. The reason this is coming out a little bit later is that at the start of the set, the meta was all out of whack. Bilgewater was pretty much dominating everything. Wouldn't have been that much of an interesting tier list, and they announced the B patch pretty early, so I just wanted to wait for that to come out and have a couple days on that patch before I gave my real opinion on it. And also in these tier lists, I like to be pretty thorough and give my actual opinions and not just rush it out just to be the first. I feel like I put a decent amount of effort and thought into these. Anyways, just jump into it. We have a legend tier list here. I'm gonna go through them quickly and just explain why. In S tier alone is going to be Ornn, in A tier is going to be Ezreal, and then B is like most of the other ones: Bard, Master Yi, Lee Sin, Aesol, Pingu, Caitlyn, TF, Poro, Urf. In C we have Draven, Veigar, Vladimir, and in D we have Tahm Kench. Ornn right now is S tier just because in the PvE cycle they ended up buffing, I believe, Zhonya's and Manazane. They also removed Cleaver and added Goldmancer and Mogu'smel. Honestly, the ones they added weren't that impactful. Removing Cleaver's nice. The ones they added are actually some of the lowest performers, but I mean, Moguls is still decent in some spots. The best Ornn items, though, are going to be Manazane, Visage, Zhonya's, Sniper's Focus, Deathfire, and then the other ones are still, pretty solid. There's no, real misses. The only quote-unquote miss is going to be basically Goldmancers. There's not enough units in the game that can actually secure kills, so it's kind of a bait item, but basically everything else is playable. I think every single comp, the optimal legend to play is Ornn, and I will go through every comp and tell you what Ornn items are good or not, but just talk about the other legends. Ezreal, I think Ezreal's basically a strictly worse version of Ornn, but he's still almost as good. Bard, kind of same thing. He's he's a worse-ish version of Ezreal. He's less consistent, but sometimes has a higher cap. Master Yi, he's probably the best combat legend right now. Would actually give comps like Fiora and Aphelios pretty good combat boosts, but just it's not as powerful as Ornn items. Lee Sin, it's not really clear what reroll comps you actually want Lee Sin for. The premier reroll comp in the meta, Chogath, wants Ornn anyways because Anima Visage is such a big hit for them. I feel like he's about as good as Z, so I'm still gonna put him in B. Aurelion Sol, honestly not even sure if he should be here, but I think legendaries are pretty strong, so if you're playing on low elo and you can be greedy, he maybe can work. Pingu is here just because I think Piltover is very, very strong. If you can secure a Piltover opener with Pingu, it's basically a guaranteed first. Caitlyn is just for early game power and top 4 potential. I think Ornn kind of does that better though, and also scales into late game. But I don't know. If you want to have upgraded unit stage 2, there you go. And TF was popular when Bilgewater's meta to force RFCs and stuff, and there are a couple strategies that still want very specific items. But in general, I don't really think doing that is best for climbing, but if you enjoy that kind of stuff, he's viable for sure. Poro, the main reason to do this is just to hit some powerful, unbalanced augments at the start of the set. I can maybe see Poro in A. You could argue it to be higher. Personally, I just think Ornn is way too powerful and consistent when you know what you're doing. And Urf is potentially solid, but the problem is half of the emblems in the game just go to comps that I never want to play. That are mid or bad. There's actually a lot of good emblems for him, like Gunnards and Zons and Sorks and stuff, but the problem is that you really don't want to be hitting stuff like Invokers and Targons and yeah, that kind of stuff. So he's just not very consistent. Draven and C, unreliable, can't rely on being able to streak. Veigar, not as powerful as Master Yi as a combat augment. Not that many comps want Jude Lotus, but not many comps want Jude Lotus, especially early. Being down, taking a slow combat augment like Jewel Lotus early is a recipe for not having a strong early game. Vladimir and C, you could argue he's about as strong as the B tier comps, but I just can't think of a single comp that would want to use him over Ornn or Master Yi. Yeah. I think the comps Vladimir is maybe good in is Bastions, but those are not really meta right now. So maybe if Bastions come back, Vladimir will come back. And then Tahm Kench in D. There's not really a point to play him, but I don't know, if you like role playing, having a bunch of gold, sure, he's there. And S tier, we're gonna start with Chobitem. The reason this is S tier is because on PB they buffed, I believe, 4 and 6 Bruiser, and they also just buffed Chogath by a lot. I think he does infinite more damage than he used to on Set 9. BIS is going to be Bramble, Declaw, Redemption. For Ornn item, Anima Visage over Redemption or Declaw. Actually, it's over Redemption. Anima Visage over Redemption is cracked. Honestly, I mean, eventually you just want to get in 6 Bruiser. That's the cap. And then your backline, it really doesn't matter what you do. You can do 5 costs like Ari or Belveth. You can do Silco. You could just do Malzahar 3. I've seen people even do Kale. I wouldn't suggest it. I think Kale is pretty not that good. Yeah, and you could just do a bunch of, if you get a random 2-star 4 cost like Kaisa or Aphelios, if you have 80 items, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. You could do also Azir. But yeah, just play 4 bruises and a 5, hit Chogath 3. Chogath 3 is honestly the only 3-star that actually matters. You can roll for Renekton and Malzahar as well, but those are fake. Once you get Chogath 3, just try to get 6 Bruiser ASAP, and play whatever you hit. Next in S tier is going to be Sorks. You always want to play 6 Sorks even without Emblem, but Emblem makes it a lot better because you can do stuff like putting it on Sona, and then you get a whole +1 slot that can be like a Shen 2, a Kassadin 2. If you're relying on Ahri care, if you're not really relying on Vel'Koz care, you don't even have to play Sona, you can just play the Ionia stuff. But yeah, you can carry Silco, Vel'Koz, and Ahri. Vel'Koz is going to be your carry like from stage 3 to like stage 5, basically. If you can't hit Vel'Koz 3, you want to swap to Ahri later. You always want to play around Silco 2 mostly. Items, I just showed like a bunch of different builds. Like the best build on all these units is probably going to be blue buff, JG +1. Vel'Koz actually wants healing because he doesn't one-shot the entire board like Ahri. Ahri doesn't really need healing because if you itemize her, you're itemizing her to one-shot the whole team. But Vel'Koz needs like 2 or 3 casts, so healing actually kind of helps. Morello is for the Chogath matchup. If there's no Chogath players, you don't really need it. But yeah, just most of them just want mana plus damage jumps. Spark's pretty important. Frontline items, I wouldn't really prio them, but you're probably gonna end up with some eventually. Notable ones are like the fights are pretty fast, so like stuff like Val Jarvan to have them cast is better. It's pretty good. Crown Guard's actually kind of cracked on swing early game, but it uses a rod, so it's kind of weird. And then like your normal Stone Plate, Bramble, Sunfire, all that stuff for redemption. Just whatever you hit. But the only thing frontline is the prio. I think you want to have 2 carries more than anything. Adaptive Helm's pretty solid. I think people have not really caught on to this item yet. It's basically a better Shojin, because it gives you 35 AP on back row, and the mana gen is basically the exact same as Shojin at 0.75 attack speed or lower, that's like the average attack speed for most casters. But yeah, Adaptive is basically a better Shojin because this gives 35 AP, and Shojin only gives 25 AP, so it's the same amount of mana, but you're getting 10 more AP and also 20 MR. But yeah, and you can also like put it on frontline for early game. But yeah, anyways, Sorks are good. Vel'Koz is probably a little bit overtuned, Silco as well, Ahri as well. Also just the trait. Just remember, always play 6 Sork. Next is just going to be like Piltover, Cashout into Aphelios. This is very similar to how you would play Zeri in the last set, but we're just prioing 4 Gunner because it's a pretty big spike and don't really have that much else to play. There's no like Urgot or anything we want to like be duo carrying, so we're definitely just going to be trying to like duo carry both of our Gunners. This is the version you play when you have Piltover. Honestly, you can itemize Jace, Jinx, or Aphelios. Jinx 2 and Jace 2 are both going to be better than Aphelios. But yeah, you can also, like, if you natural a bunch of them, you can go for 3 stars, maybe on, like, level 8, level 7. And as you level, you can do stuff like place Echo for Heimer. If you really need the Zon mod, you can play the Silco. You can play a bunch of legendaries. Yeah, it just doesn't really matter. But this is, like, the standard board you use to cash out. Or Gunner, Echo, Bruiser. So once you cash out, you basically win the game. So it doesn't really matter after that. This is like another kind of version of Gunner. This is the kind of the version that you need a +1 for, either +1 Gunner or +1 Zon. +1 Gunner, like 4 Gunner is the core. 4 Zon is like optional because if you have a +1, it actually lets you play like a Juggernaut unit, which gives you real frontline, because otherwise your frontline is like kind of scuffed, right? But this is basically just Jinx reroll. You need Armor Shot somewhere. If you don't have Even Shroud, you can go Less Whisper instead of IE. It's best with like Robotic Arm or Shimmer, but if you don't have those, you can go Ginsu, I guess, over probably GS or IE. Basically, we're just abusing 4 Gunner with Jinx and rolling for Jinx 3 and 6. If you hit Jinx 3 and you can like level to 8, play more frontline, get a +1 Gunner is on. It's very, very good. Next in S tier is going to be 5 costs. Honestly, a lot of the 4 cost comps right now are just kind of underpowered, just for whatever reason. Like the units are just not that good, so 5 costs are like definitely what is winning most of the games. Obviously it's kind of hard to get there, it's 5 costs, but if you can get there, I've seen a lot of boards like these win, and I've won with these boards a lot of the time. It's very similar to last set. We're just including Nasus and K'Sante now instead of Taric because we get Shrima for free. You can tank either Shen, Sion, K'Sante, or Nasus. Whatever is like upgraded, it makes sense. For like 3rd carry, you can also like carry Aatrox. Honestly, sometimes you don't even need Ionia, and you can literally play all the 5 costs, like add a GP and a Rise if you need. Like GP cleanses CC, so he can be a good option. But yeah, basically you always want to be carrying Bel'Thari. 3rd carry is Aatrox, tank items on whatever you have upgraded, and this wins a lot of games. The stats say this is like S tier, but in my humble personal opinion, I think this Warwick Ravenous comp is like a lot more beatable than people think. It's like, I don't know. My anecdotal evidence makes me want to put this comp in like A tier, just because I've beaten Warwicks with pretty mediocre setups, and I've seen Warwicks like blues, like capped Warwick boards just go dead fourth or something. The gist of it, is that we take this with Ravenous Hunter. We go play around 4 Juggernaut, 2 Challenger on 6, and 1's on, 2's on. Good things for this comp are +1 Juggernaut, +1's on. We eventually want to end up on 6 Juggernaut and like level 8. But if you get like a bunch of +1s, you can also go like 4's on. But Warwick just 1v9s, frontline's unkillable, Silco's in the backline, spreading anti-heal, healing your team up. It's a decent comp. I just have my doubts about it. Probably somewhere between S and A tier for me. Now at A tier, we're gonna have rogues. There's a lot of variation to this. I think the core is playing 4 rogues and at least 1 Ixtal. The best Ixtals are... Okay, I think it's pronounced Ishtal, but I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say Ixtal. I don't care about the lore. Get mad at me all you want. I don't care. Oh yeah, you want to play 4 rogue and like at least 1 Ixtal. The best Ixtals are... by far the best one is Wood. The one that gives you scaling HP. That one's cracked. You just give your infinite HP to Kiana. And then you could play 3 Wood to give your more HP to either like Nico or Katarina, and then they'll just have like 4k HP by late game, and they'll be basically unkillable. That's the way I've seen this comp win the most. I think Fire and Wind are pretty bad because the Hexes spawn the backline. Honestly, if it's one of those, I might not even play Ishtal, and I might just play more Slayers or something. And Ice is pretty good. I like Ice, Mountain's okay, but yeah, usually you want to cap this board out with like Slayers, getting in 4 Slayer on like level 7, for example, if you like don't want the Ixtal, something like that. You can also like on level 6 play around like Jinx or something if you want the Zon. You can also itemize Echo over Cat if you have more Echoes. If you have Graves 3, like this is definitely, you definitely probably want to play Jinx. Like this is flexible, like you just play the supporting units based on the Ixtal and units you have carrying. I don't really like. There's actually a lot of variations on this. I don't really want to go through them all, but just the standard is like the constants are 4 rogue and putting 3 items on Kiana. Everything else is sometimes flex. If you have a rogue emblem, it like pretty much always goes on Nico. Sometimes it goes on Mord if you don't want to play Nico, but rogue Nico's pretty good. A tier, really good with stuff like Slayer +1, 4 Ixtal with like rogue or with like Mountain or Wind or Wood is pretty good. The rogue Omnivamp augment's insane. I forgot I was supposed to be talking about these Ornn items. Okay. I always do this where like I either forget to talk about the legend or I forget to talk about like Ornn item. I guess Ornn items for these. Death's Defiance is pretty good on Kiana. Triforce is pretty good on Kiana. Deathfire and Zaniz are pretty good on Cat and Echo. Honestly, that's about it. Ornn's not that good for this, but usually I would play this comp from like a 2-1 augment that like gave me rogue direction, so not often playing this from Ornn, but it can still be solid. I'm gonna go back and talk about the Ornn items. So for Sorks, the best one by far is gonna be Manazane. It is literally best on every single Sork carry. It's just nuts. It gives you so much mana. It got buffed on PPE to give it AP. It used to not even give AP at all, and now it just gives 15, which makes it so insane. Snipers is also really good on Ahri and Vel'Koz. It's not very good on Silco because he targets frontline. Trickster's Glass is pretty good on Taric. Animus is just decent frontline. Zani is really good on all the Sork units. Deathfire is pretty good on all the Sork units. I think Manazane is better than Snipers, is better than Zani is better than Deathfire for carry items, for example. But yeah, that's about it. I think Gold Mentor is a complete trap. Don't take this. It's not worth it. The dream is not real. For this comp, Gunnar's frontline's good. Like Ana Visage, Eternal Winter is pretty good on Sedge just because of her interaction with it. Collector is actually insane on Jinx. Because I think how it works is that when she kills someone with Collector, like her next rocket will just retarget to the next unit. So having it executed on her is really, really good. Triforce is always solid. Manazane's actually pretty good on Jace if you're playing Jace carry. Snipers is obviously insane. I think Collector actually has better stats than Snipers, but Snipers is obviously really, really good, especially on like Aphelios. Yeah, that's about it. Tricksters, you can just put it on Jace or Jinx is actually just perfectly fine. Yeah, lots of good options. Triforce you can just put on anyone. Same thing for this comp. Same holds true. Collector, Snipers on Jinx, very good. For legendaries, Manazane Ahri is insane. Trickster Scion's insane. Snipers Ahri is insane. Death's Defiance Bel'Veth's insane. Triforce on Aatrox or Bel'Veth is really, really good. Zania's Ahri is insane. All these are just insane. Even like Hole Crusher on like Bel'Veth or Aatrox are like really good, or just generic frontline. For Warwick, Death's Defiance over BT is insane. But like if you're playing Warwick, you probably have Ravenous Hunter on 2-1. So it's kind of irrelevant. And now we're caught up. Next comp is the boss. We don't want to talk about Ornn items here because you're only going to play the boss if you get the boss on 2-1. Basically, you want to play Sett and Xayah duo carry. You can have Jhin 2 hold items on your mid game. Keep this board in mind for late game. Just 6 Juggernaut through Ionia. But like your mid game, you drop. Like this is the bare bones cheapest option you got, I guess. Play around through Ionia, Sett. Honestly, I just prefer rolling on 7. Even if you're like going for Sett 3, I think rolling on 7 is better because you can actually find like the Xayah and like the Shen. You could just play around the Shell and I don't know, your +1 could be honestly anything. Doesn't really matter. Random Taric, sure. But yeah, just playing around vertical Juggernaut through Ionia. Dual carry Xayah Sett. BI Sett is going to be I think BS hits the crit build, but like Titans is fine. Sterix is honestly probably okay. Actually, not really. Yeah, I would go for the crit build. This is max crit, and you have Hodge for some healing. Best augments for him outside of the boss is just going to be like stuff like healing orbs and bleach, just more healing on him. Honestly, you can go like double Hodge over Night Officer as well if you just need more healing. Oh yeah, like +1 Juggernaut's also pretty good. Next comp in A tier is just Slayer Flex, I want to call it. Basically, how I play this comp is I just play around like Tempo Demacia Opener and play around Winnie Carry until I can level to 8. And you always want to play 6 Slayer, but before you hit 6 Slayer, like you usually get kept by like not hitting Aatrox. So before you hit Aatrox, you can play something like this and play like 5 Demacia Persona. Yeah, you can do something like this. And like if this whole board's upgraded, it's pretty good. Quinn 2 with a like Galio 2 Tempo 5 Demacia Opener is actually pretty stable on 7. It can get you to 8 on like 4-5, 5-1. Pretty healthy. And you want to pivot to Slayers. Ideally, you want to go for Mordekaiser duo carry with stuff like RFCs. I think BIS Quinn is last for IE, and then you get the Radiant Deathblade from her. You could also stay on 7 and roll for Quinn 3, but you probably like drop Sejuani and roll at 7 for just 5 Demacia, 4 Slayer. Yeah, a lot of options, but the cap for this is obviously 6 Slayer. I think it's pretty solid. Next is just going to be Noxus. I would only play this with Noxus Spat opener, because the comp kind of needs a spat to like tempo your mid game, because I don't really think Darius and Katarina reroll is very effective anymore. Katarina was like always kind of mid. She's also just kind of mid now because she's bounced around having 4 rogue doing extra damage, and you're not playing 4 rogue here. Darius got like nerfed heavily because he has the Vanquisher trait, so I think the best way to play around this is just tempo your early game, play around like Samira item holder, Cassio item holder, and pivot into Mordekaiser. Also, you probably want Slayer in here. The best is obviously Aatrox, but you can also just do Kiana. Next items, I like itemizing my spat unit. I think Nyla is pretty decent. After the nerfs, maybe she's not. Maybe you like itemize... Okay, I don't really want to itemize Darius, though. I think itemizing tank is pretty good, and I like itemizing the spat unit. The spat unit, I don't know, I like Nyla, but maybe... Okay, I'm looking through these units, and like they're not that good. Maybe you can do like Fiora with, Noxus Fiora with like Samir or something. I think Nyla's might still be fine. But yeah, you go for RFCs more on Mord, and like tempo with Noxus, and go fast 8 for 7 Demacia. Also, I forgot to talk about the Ornn items for this comp. Slayers. Generic frontline Ornn items is really good on Sejuani. Snipers is really good on RFC Mord. Trickster is actually pretty solid on Quinn. Snipers is broken on Quinn. Collector's actually pretty good on Quinn as well. Triforce is pretty good on Quinn. Like over, I guess probably like the last post for slot, and you go for like even try or something. For this comp, Snipers on RFC Mord, especially for like scope weapons or something. Scope weapons is like probably the best augment for this comp. Triforce just for tempo. Oh, I actually like, I would want to play with like Noxus +1 opener, so like I guess talking about Ornn is not that relevant, but it's good to know, I guess. Next in A tier. Okay, honestly, this comp is like not even averaging that well, but it's like kind of like my pocket pick. I think it's not really averaging that well because I don't think people understand the actual strength of this Azir Strategist Juggernaut line. I think people are over prioritizing Azir and not prioritizing Nasus enough. I think the most important thing with this comp is having a Nasus 2 with 3 real tank items. Like if you're putting a Sunfire or a Spark on your Nasus, like it's fine. It's just... that's like one less multiplication lever on like his tankiness. He might like die to some things he like wouldn't normally. And if you get him into Ascend with like items like these, he can actually be unkillable for a lot of comps, and that's how you actually scale your like Azir damage and win the fights. Ideal boards on like level 8 are like 4 Juggernaut sometimes, or drop the 4 Jug if you have the Aatrox, and you can play the MF and like Heimer or something. MF Scion, just any 5 cost work. Even like MF GP is okay. I also think people aren't prioritizing Silco enough. I think Silco is actually like, Silco items matter a lot. That's why I think Ornn is basically essential for this comp, because you need 3 item Nasus, Azir, and Silco. I think Nasus items matter the most, Silco second, then Azir third actually. Ornn items matter like the most of this comp. Like, I think this comp uses Ornn items, some of the Ornn items the best. This is really good on Nasus. DD is actually like whatever on Nasus. Hulk Crush is pretty good on Nasus. Eternal's okay. Triforce is okay on Azir. Manazine is nuts on Silco. Collector's kind of mid. Zani's is nuts on Azir. He's the best Zani's user in the game. You can actually like 1v9 with it. I would play it over one of the attack speed items. Snipers is decent on Azir. Deathfire is decent on Silco, and then MF. You can item hold MF until you hit Silco 2 or like Silco 1. MF can be a good secondary carry for like all of stage 3 and stage 4, early stage 5. If you have like a really insane Mogul's Bet opener, Mogul's is fine on Nasus. This comp is not averaging that well, but I think people are misplaying it a lot, and I still have lots of success with it. So yeah, I think like the most... also like you always have to be ascending Nasus. Do not ascend your Azir unless like you have like no Nasus items or something. But if you have no Nasus items, like what are you doing, bro? I think it's still good. That's just my opinion. And then also in A tier, it's gonna be like Bruiser Reksai. Personally, like this is like the reverse example of Azir. The comp, like this comp is doing insane in the stats, but my problem is that like anecdotally and just experience wise, I just find this Reksai unit fairly unreliable. she kind of, yeah, I don't really vibe with her. But I mean, I can't not put her in A tier. She like bruiser +1's averaging a 3.9. But yeah, go for like redemption on like Sedge or Vi. I think BI's Reksai after the new item change is actually Sterix, BT Titans, and go for Quinn as a duo carry, roll on 7. It's a lot better with Slayer or bruiser +1. If you get a bruiser +1, you like drop the Renekton and like drop the if you don't have the Scion on like 7, you can like bruiser or Mordekaiser and then level for 4 Slayer. Always solid. Or you can just play like Ashe or something on 7. Ornn items. Animus is always going to be insane in bruiser comps. Just put on your main tank. Death Defiance is BIS Reksai over BT. Sniper is probably pretty good on Quinn. Hulk Crusher is actually pretty good on Reksai. Underrated. Yeah, honestly, that's about it. Final, like last in A tier is going to be Challengers. Also, like this is another example of a comp that's doing well in the stats, but a comp I haven't seen do that well in game. I've really only seen this comp cap it at like 4th. And I've seen it like go up for a lot, but let's do it. Like, for example, it's like performing much better than Azir, so I can't like put it too low. But yeah, the gist of this comp is you roll on 7 for this exact board. My problem with it is that you need like most of these units to be upgraded. There's not really like a good 3-cost alternative to Kai'Sa or Fiora if you're playing around Challengers. There's no more Kalista anymore, which makes this comp super awkward in my opinion. And both these units, since they're Challengers, they require resets. They're both really thresholdy, and thresholdy units are usually just being shit at or usually bad at 1-star and like acceptable at 2-star. So if you're stuck on like a 1-star PR, 1-star Kai'Sa, you're gonna feel really, really bad. Same thing with like Nasus. Nasus is gonna be your main tank. He's also like contested by the Azir line, so not gonna be the easiest time hitting this board. But if you can hit this board and you can level for like Aatrox or something, it's solid. It's just, I think it's just a little inconsistent for my taste, but it's doing well in the stats, so I can't not put it here. You play 3 Demacia to get 3rd item on Fiora, tank Nasus, 3rd item Kai'Sa, level for Aatrox or Heimer. I think Aatrox is slightly better if you have a Challenger +1. You can level for 6 Challenger. You can also drop Demacia. I think Demacia is actually correct to drop late game. Go for 3rd on Fiora and play like 5 costs like Aatrox, Heimer, like Bel'Veth. I don't know. Like this is like the dream where you have like 2 challenger spots or something, and then you can like itemize everyone. But yeah, like I'm rambling. I think this comp has like potential. It's just like very, very reliant on hitting 2-star 4 costs on 7, which is some people. It's not really my cup of tea. But I'm next in B tier. I think this comp has not gotten enough testing. I mean, I think this board in particular is like probably deserves to be an A tier, but the problem is it's kind of hard to get to this board when you're playing around 80 items in this meta and you're not playing Gunners. But it's just going to be like Xayah, Sejuani, 4 Vanquisher Flex. BIS Xayah is going to be DBGS Gunblade. Honestly, you can go less with her as well, even with Freljord. It's still pretty solid. Take items on Sejuani over Shen. Play 4 Vanquisher. Get Scion in. I put this Rise as like a flex unit. You can play Heimer as well, or Aatrox or something. If you get a Vanquisher spat, you can play 6 Vanquisher over Rise. I think it has potential. Like, after like 1 Xayah buff, this might be like the standard level 8 comp in the game. Like, that every other comp has to beat. I think Xayah is like slightly too weak. What makes Xayah actually strong? I think you can actually like maybe angle this a lot more if you have snipers on Xayah. Like, snipers over GS. Because Xayah hits like the entire board, including the backline, and with Sniper's Focus, you can basically one-shot stuff. I was actually really, really impressed by a Sniper Xayah build I had earlier. I went 3rd with it, but I went 3rd to like Azir 3, and I was beating some pretty strong boards earlier. Other decent Ornn items are Eternal Winter Sedge, Anima Visage Sedge, Hulk Crusher Sedge. Tricksters is also really, really good on Xayah. I think Tricksters and Collector are probably really good. I know Tricksters is for sure because it gives her... Tricksters actually gives crits, which is pretty good for Vanquishers. And both the Xayahs will probably cast because they have Ionia, so it kind of gets around the mana penalty. And Collector's good because it gives crits and she executes pretty well. But I think Sniper's is the best. Oh yeah, I think this comp has potential. Like 1 small Xayah buff probably pushes this into like A or maybe even S tier. So I'd look out for this in the future. Invoker is also in B tier. Like if you can hit 3-star Karma, 3-star Soraka, 2-star Shen, 2-star Taric, 3-star Galio, and like Ahri and Rise, you're chillin'. The problem is doing that when people are playing stuff like Piltover and like Forgotter and all, and like Sorks and stuff, is really, really hard. And Karma 2 is not really reliable as a main carry. And you also like need Shen. And honestly, after you've like Shen got like a bunch of nerfs in the last like set, you don't even need like Shen 1 anymore. You need Shen 2. It's kind of sad. When Invokers were meta last set, like it was actually impossible to find Shen 1, and now you need a Shen 2. Personally, I like really would never touch this comp, but if you're an Invoker fan, I think it's playable if you hit. So I'm going to put it in B tier. And next in B tier, it's going to be a different version of Xayah. It's going to be the Ionia version. Ionia spent Nyla playing 6 Ionia. We're not playing the Sejuani frontline. We're relying on like Shen and Juggernauts. This is like the level 7 board. Obviously, Ahri on 7 is not common. You can just play Karma over Ahri. And then level 8 can be any flex unit. Like, if you have another +1, you can go like 6 Vanquisher or like 4 Juggernaut or something. But this is the standard level 7. You go less right here because you're not playing Freljord. And we're itemizing Nyla because we actually have 6 Ionia for her. I think this comp is worse than the Sejuani version because I think Sejuani is a much better tank than Shen. But this comp fits better on 7. It gives you a very accessible duo carry and Ionia and Nyla. I'd watch out for this as well with 1 small like Xayah and Ionia buff. Like if they both like Ione like the trait and like the Ione opener, this could definitely be like A tier in the future. And in C tier, but I'm just gonna put it here just to show how far it's fallen. It's gonna be the Bilgewater comp. This was terrorizing ladder for the first day or two with the set. I got pretty much gutted though at all levels. I will say though, if you can get a spats, BIS everything, and like this exact board, I think you can still top 4. But I'm gonna put it in C tier. BIS now it's gonna be double RFC to spread the Bilgewater procs, and GA to keep her alive, Blue Book Misfortune to proc Bilgewater at the start of the fight, even Shroud Nasus to armor shred everyone. I mean, the comp still exists. You could still top 4 with it, but it got a lot worse. So I'm putting it in C tier. There's a lot more comps I didn't really discuss. Like, you could talk about, like, Casser reroll, Kale reroll, Samira Neferi reroll, Hash reroll, Riftwalker Kassadin, the Gallo Hero Augment, I don't even know what it's called, Double Trouble Talia, TF reroll, MF, Nautilus reroll, Nico reroll. Like those are all comps I like know of, but I don't really feel confident putting them on a tier list. Because for one, I haven't really played them, and two, I haven't really seen them played that much, and there's not enough like data on them. So I'm putting comps here I'm like very confident in the power level of. As more comps getting explored in the coming weeks, I'll probably just add those comps here. So don't act like I'm like purposely, I mean, I am purposely ignoring those comps, but it's for like a good reason. So like don't type in the comments like, hey, where's Kale reroll? I just don't think it's like that good. So I'm just not gonna put it here. Or look, I mean, it might be good, I just don't, it's not really explored. So I don't really have a good read on it. But anyways, to recap, play Ornn. All the items are insane. Yeah, you really can't go bad except for Goldmancers. S tier is gonna be Chogath, Sorks, Piltover Gunners, Jinx Gunner reroll, and Legendaries. A tier is gonna be Ravenous Warwick, Rogue for Rogue Flex, the Boss Xayah Duo, Slayer Demacia Flex, Noxus Mord, Azir Strategist, Juggernaut Silco Flex, Bruiser Reksai reroll, and Challengers. B tier is gonna be Sejuani Xayah, Invokers 6 Ionia Xayah, and C tier is gonna be Bilgewater. Yep, that'll be it for me. I will see you guys, I guess, in next fetch. Yeah, peace.